Hello, hello, hello. Welcome into another episode of Sports Talk Chicago. My name is Joey Christopoulos. We're going to talk NFL draft. We're going to talk Bears. Let's bring in our guest today. He's an old friend of mine. I can't wait to talk to him. We always have such a great conversation. And of course, our football teams that we cover continue to cross paths. It seems like every single offseason and sometimes in midseason. He is the host of Bleav in Steelers with former Steelers Ike Taylor. He is also the senior multi-platform producer for WRAL in Raleigh.
I've got you, Joey Christopoulos. And listen, you got the whole state of Illinois listening to your show. It is an honor to be on. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's all to the power of Sports Talk Chicago and what they've been growing over the last couple of years. John, I'm so happy to be on and filling in for him this week. Mark, we're going to talk a lot about the Chicago Bears, but I think, like I was saying pre-pod, you know how when you see a friend maybe after they just get through a messy divorce or a bad breakup, and you don't want to bring it up, but you're so close with that friend that you feel like you have to just maybe do it off the top and get it out of the way? Look, I don't really want to talk about Justin Fields that much more. We're 2 weeks away from the NFL draft, but you do cover the Steelers on the daily. So I am just curious. Let's start it off here. What are the vibes in Pittsburgh among the fan base with the acquisition of Justin Fields in the offseason and, of course, his forthcoming competition with Russell Wilson for the QB1 in Pittsburgh?
Joey, it's as simple as this for me. The Steelers this season are paying less than $5 million for both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. That is an upgrade over Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, who would be making more money than that. So to me, it's as simple as that of which would you rather have? I'd rather have Wilson and Fields. And talking to you tonight, it's almost like I'm the new boyfriend, you're the old boyfriend. It's like, oh, how's Justin doing? That's how it feels to me.
Great
Thrilled
first
he's in
couple
a
of
Pittsburgh
dates.
Steelers uniform. He's gonna play at some point in the 2024 season. When is anyone's guess because of that conditional pick that'll go back to Chicago?
Yeah, and just maybe a quick follow up on that, because you're also from the Chicagoland area. You know, you've got some skin in the game here with the Chicago Bears, and across Chicago sports. We've talked at length privately a little bit about some of the shortcomings of Justin to end the season. As you kind of see it rolling out right now, do you think Justin not only would benefit from a reset in Pittsburgh, but maybe even benefit sitting for a little while? Because I know a lot of Chicago Bears fans are going to do some comparative language and arguments with Caleb Williams once he drafted. Look, Justin Fields isn't even on the field, but do you think maybe for the health of his career moving forward, Justin Fields maybe sitting behind Russell Wilson to start the season, maybe the best move for his career long term?
A 9-time Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion. So Russell Wilson's not what he was a few seasons back, but he's performed at the highest level in the NFL. And whether he likes it or not, he's going to have to fulfill that role. I would be very surprised if Wilson's not the starter come week 1 of the 2024 season. Let's be honest, though, Joey, let's look at this both ways. Caleb Williams is coming into a much different situation than Justin came into with this very same Bears organization. So you have to add that caveat in. But Justin Fields, a read option with Najee Harris or a read option with Jaylen Warren, it gets me excited thinking about those possibilities of playing AFC North football, a lot like NFC North football, where November, December, January, it's a different style than what you see earlier on in the year. It's colder, it's harder to tackle guys. The fact that you have to hold defenses accountable, the fact with Justin Fields on the field that you have to play 8 men in the box a lot of times, you have to have a spy on him. You have to have eyes on him at all times because he's shown the ability at his peak to take it the distance as long as he has the football in his hands. So you want to see the passing game develop too. Steelers have some weapons. I'll list off, George Pickens is very exciting. Pat Freiermuth also entering a contract season at the tight end position, new OC with Arthur Smith. There is a lot of excitement with the Pittsburgh Steelers and what hopefully will be a revamped offense now that offensive coordinator Matt Canada no longer around.
Excitement, potential, possibilities. I think those are words we've used a lot with
Yeah.
Justin Fields, but that's part of the frustrating nature as he's entering his 4th year, and we're still talking about potential and possibilities. But let's roll it over, Mark, to a more interesting potential and possibilities. This NFL draft that's barreling right around the corner. This episode is airing across our wonderful radio affiliates on a Thursday. Hopefully, people are catching it around that time. So we are exactly 2 weeks away until the NFL draft. So I want to kick this off to you. This is a little open ended, but I think each one can. There's a compelling case for each one of these guys. But out of the four quarterbacks right now, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, which one has you the most intrigued right now, just in terms of draft night, in terms of landing spot, in terms of surprise of, oh man, he's going way earlier than I thought. And you have a little bit of a background with Drake May, watching him in your backyard these last couple of years. So, which quarterback has you the most intrigued heading into the draft?
I don't think it's any secret that Caleb Williams will go number one overall to the Bears. So let's start under that assumption. So then at number two with Washington, new ownership, new GM. They've cleaned house, ton of salary cap space, a lot of offseason moves in free agency. Do you want to go with the ties that Jaden Daniels has, or do you want to go with Drake May? And for me, if I'm the Commanders at number two, I go with Drake May because he's your prototypical size and stature of which kind of quarterbacks have had success in the NFL. 6'4", 220, 230 and some change. Where I look at Jaden Daniels, you see a 6'4", very slight of frame, and had a ton of talent around him at LSU, probably has higher upside, but that slight of frame, really not knowing how to slide. Okay, what did that do with Anthony Richardson? Again, I look at a quarterback of Drake May's size and stature. You've had success with that style of quarterback in the league. So if I'm Washington, don't overthink this, right? And I still think that Jaden Daniels can be a fine prospect. The same with JJ McCarthy. I think it's Caleb Williams at the number one in a tier to himself. I think May and Daniels are in that second tier, and I think JJ McCarthy is just a shade behind. Also a little bit of sleight of frame. But given the quarterback, the needs for good quarterback play, McCarthy will probably go in the top 10 as well. So we see quarterback right off the top. I Bleav it was the 2021 draft the last time we saw that. Doesn't happen very often, but I do think that's how it will shake out with Chicago, Washington, and New England, the first three picks of the draft. And then New England's going to be stuck with, okay, whether it's May or Daniels at number two, are they going to be happy with who they're left with from the Patriots standpoint? Because New England needs a quarterback as well.
Yeah, that's what's so intriguing about the Patriots at number three is, everyone assumes that they'll just take whoever's left, but they have to be in love with both of the guys at three to have that conviction to want to get into that spot in the first place. And if it's not, we're already talking about possibly the number 4 pick with the Arizona Cardinals being for sale, the Los Angeles Chargers pick at number 5 being for sale. Do the New England Patriots have that conviction on both of those guys that they're going to lock in at 3? I think that's another interesting aspect too as well.
And let me piggyback off this too, because there's going to be Bears fans listening to you, Joey, that says, Drake May, North Carolina, how's he any different than Mitch Trubisky? Different coaching staff. Trubisky was a 1-year starter. Drake May was a 2-year starter at Carolina. Totally different prospects. Completely different. So people that say, oh, the commonality in North Carolina quarterback, just I want to put that notion to bed from the jump, Joey. Different coaching staffs, different schemes. Again, more college experience in terms of actually playing the quarterback position. I want to put that narrative to bed before it even starts.
Yeah, this could be speculation, and this also could be a poorly phrased question because you just might say, I don't know. But I have seen a lot of reports this week that clearly everyone can confirm that the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams have had dinner several times. They've taken a rickshaw. They've done the architecture tour. You know what I'm saying? In Chicago, like, we know that those two guys have met together. There have been several reports that the Chicago Bears did meet with Jaden Daniels during his pro day, but no one on the planet can confirm whether the Chicago Bears met with Drake May. Is that something? Nothing? I mean, in my opinion, I just think the Chicago Bears are so locked in on Caleb. It makes me probably question more, why would you even meet with Jaden if you're not going to meet with Dre? I mean, I don't know how to make sense of that.
I would turn over all of your rocks and all of your stones, because when they drafted Mitch Trubisky in that very same draft, Why didn't they do their due diligence with Deshaun Watson? Why didn't they do their due diligence with Patrick Mahomes? And I'm talking about the Deshaun Watson that was absolutely tearing it up with the Houston Texans and was had a 24-0 lead against Patrick Mahomes in that playoff game a few years ago. So I'm of the thought process, turn over all of your rocks, all of your stones, leave no stone left unturned. That's what I would say. Having even said all of that, though, Caleb Williams is the guy, and that is a consensus. We might look back on it differently with years to come. I know Bears fans always love to point out of we haven't had a quarterback throw for 30 touchdowns in a single season. We haven't had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards in a single season. Caleb Williams is coming into a very favorable situation. Again, it is night and day the difference between the situation he's coming into and the situation that Justin Fields came into. So Caleb Williams is getting the opportunity for success, even if the Bears decide to do something different at number 9 and not get Williams another weapon. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, who's coming over, 2 pretty good targets. Cole Kmet solid, then you've got depth at the running back too. So it's much different, and that's kind of how I take into account all of that. Joey, I'm rambling now.
No, it's okay. There's a couple of street free agents too as well, like a Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Boyd. Let's say the Chicago Bears move down and then go into the number 9 pick. They could still maybe bring in a veteran to sort of fortify that unit for another year, get another bite at the apple next year when they have 2 second-round picks. Sort of roll it forward from there. So yeah, it's funny. It's such a fait accompli that Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick. That this is kind of like I don't know the right analogy here, but it sort of feels like an ocean that's swaying different ways. And for a couple weeks, it was all about Caleb, but now in the Chicago narrative, it is all about the number 9 pick, which I feel like is going to shift back to Caleb probably next week as we get closer and closer to the draft. But right now, all Chicago Bears fans are thinking about and talking about is that number 9 pick. So I want to start here. Buy or sell the J.J. McCarthy trade talk, specifically at picks number 4 with Arizona, picks number 5 possibly with the Los Angeles Chargers. The Minnesota Vikings have been rumored. Denver Broncos have possibly been rumored. I want to get your take on whether you buy that from J.J. McCarthy as a player, whether you buy one of these teams like Minnesota actually paying 11 and 23 to move up for J.J. McCarthy, because for the Chicago Bears, I think 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 is one of the ideal scenarios that they need to happen to possibly get one of the top players available on their board.
If I'm the Bears, go get another receiver. Like, load up. Like, if you're gonna go all in, go all in.
Yeah.
Like, if that's either Romo Dunze or Malik Neighbors at number 9, take that player. And okay, why do you do that? DJ Moore isn't old. He's not exactly young either, coming off a career year. Good target, good number 1. I like him. Keenan Allen's in the final year of his deal. So if he doesn't want to stick around in Chicago, or you have a young receiver learn from 2 guys when they've been on the field, have performed at a very high level in the NFL, load up. Other teams do it. I mean, Baltimore's done it. In the AFC North, I see Cincinnati where it's like the success that Joe Burrow has, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Are you kidding me? And try to stop that. And what that does to help out your defense when you've got playmakers on your offensive side of the ball that can put up points consistently against anybody. So, okay, yeah, trade up for J.J. McCarthy and then trade back to get who? I get that you're always going to have holes to fill with your team, but to me, go make it as comfortable as possible for Caleb Williams in a draft where there's a lot of receiver depth. And you might say, hey, Mark, you might be able to get someone just as good in the 2nd or 3rd round. I get that. A lot of receiver depth, a lot of offensive tackle depth as well. So that to me is what I would prioritize if I was the Bears. If it's Odunze or Malik Neighbors and either of those players is available at number 9, I have no hesitation if I'm Ryan Poles and in the Bears front office to say that's our guy at number 9. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of people wrapping their heads around the historical nature of the wide receivers and when they're taken in drafts, right? It's so easy to say we can just find somebody in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And granted, there are tons of great examples like Kevin Fishbain of The Athletic listed the top 10 wide receivers, the top 10 salaries of the wide receivers right now. And I think maybe only 2 or 3 of them were actually taken in the first round. The rest of the guys are probably second and third round guys. I get it. You get those situations all the time. But for every time that you roll the dice on that, you have a Velus Jones Jr. You have I'm blanking on Calvin Ridley's brother's name. The other Ridley that the Chicago Bears tried to draft that didn't work out. That happens all the time. And I hear you with Malik Neighbors and Roman Dunze. They're definitely going to probably need J.J. McCarthy to somehow get into that top 10 somehow, which gives you 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. And then you would have to think that 1 or 2 of the defensive ends and 1 of the offensive tackles is off the board, and then they might get an opportunity at that. One of the
It's
other
positional
ones
value,
around,
though.
yeah.
It's positional value, though, Joey. And to kind of put a bow on this is like, okay, wide receiver, offensive tackle, edge rusher, corner, quarterback. Those are your positions that have the highest value, right? So, okay, edge rusher is another need. There's not a guy at number 9 for the value of that pick that, in my opinion, that would say that player is worth the 9th overall pick without trading back. So maybe that's your logic if you're Chicago, but if Keenan Allen's then going to be a free agent after the 2024 season, and I get that even DJ Moore might be a piece for Caleb Williams for what, 2 or 3 years after Caleb would be a rookie. I get that. No one lasts for forever. Father Time's undefeated. Make that as smooth of a process as possible, though. And then, if you get a stud rookie receiver this year, Keenan Allen wants to leave in free agency. Okay, no sweat. We already have depth there with whoever the rookie would be and DJ Moore. That's my logic.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of Bears fans, we should be really excited that Keenan Allen is on the team, but we also have to have a perspective that he is, as you're describing, he is a stopgap. He's going to be 32 years old when we start week 1. He's under a 1-year deal right now. They could restructure
He hasn't stayed healthy.
Could turn it into it too. And then that's the big one. He hasn't been healthy. He hasn't played a full slate of games, I believe, in about 3 or 4 years. So they're going to have to be some other guys. They're going to step up. And even when you look at that, when you look at the football card and you're like, 14 games, that's not that bad. Those 3 games are huge, right? We're just talking about this now because it's the offseason. Once you start playing those games on Sunday, missing those games are huge, and you never know when that's going to occur, whether it's going to come down to a wild card or a division or a playoff. To your point, with the offensive line, the defensive end, and the wide receiver, the Bears are in a really good shape with those 2 top picks in the top 10 because, look, get Brock Bowers out of your mind, all right? Because the idea is you have to draft these guys that are eventually going to have that market value of, as you said, a market value of over $20 million a year. So if you look at the Chicago Bears salary cap right now, on defense alone, on the cap next year, they have Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, and Tremaine Edmonds. Those guys are combined for $60 million on the cap. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Cole Kmet are going to count against $50 million in the cap. So there is a possibility to say, well, maybe we'd be better off, especially with Keenan Allen coming off. Where are we putting our big dollars right now? Seems like they're all on defense. And if Keenan Allen comes off that book, that number goes down even more. So I'm leaning offensively right now, whether it is offensive line or whether it is the wide receiver. And Mark, we talked about it when I was on your show last time. The Marvin Harrison thing won't go away. It won't go away. Now, this isn't. Now, I'm not talking
What's
about.
the update, Joey?
So the context. The context is the last time I was on Mark's show. We had a great time together, and I work in and around the Big Ten. I had talked to a few people, and I tried to get it confirmed that at the time Marvin Harrison was blowing off his combine. He was blowing off his pro day. He was just kind of like, he's just not showing up. And what I had kind of been told is that Marvin Harrison, this is unconfirmed, but this is all, we're having fun here. What I was told is that Marvin Harrison wants to play for the Chicago Bears. And he's going to do whatever he can to either tank his value or just kind of give the cold shoulder to a couple enough teams to possibly make it work. I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Marvin Harrison is going to slide to the Bears at number 9. But if J.J. McCarthy maybe moves into number 4, I think there could be a deal that could be had possibly with the Chargers at number 5. So moving up 4 spots, the value is probably going to be next year's Carolina second round pick or next year's Chicago Bears second round pick and maybe another piece. So if it was a second round pick and let's just say a 4th round pick, Mark, would you move up those 4 spots to take Marvin Harrison Jr.?
There's usually 1 or 2 players in every single draft that you are certain are going to hit. There is no chance that Marvin Harrison isn't at least a good player in the NFL.
Right.
Son of a Hall of Fame receiver in his own right, in Marvin Harrison Sr., number 88, whose jersey's hanging up at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. I know, I was there last month for the NFL Combine. What his son did at Ohio State, when every team in the country knows it's coming, hey, we got to stop 18. Like,
couldn't do it.
Yeah, if you could say the 9th pick next to your second, and you're guaranteed to get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5 against the Chargers, what are we waiting on?
People need to also understand that Kyle McCord was their quarterback last year. And I'm telling you,
I
Kyle
love
McCord,
it. Michigan
sorry,
fans are any Michigan fans listening to this. Listen, you just got a lot of kudos. Follow my guy, Joey Sports Guy Twitter. Continue, my friend.
I'm sorry, man. He ain't it, dude. He wasn't it. You know what I mean? And Marvin really had to pull a lot of plays out of his butt, excuse me, to pump up some of the numbers that Kyle McCord was already struggling to produce at the time. And here's my thing is, I know it's a really fun conversation, and comment question below if you're watching on YouTube right now, because I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are, because it's something that you have to really think about. I know one of the most fun cliched things a sports fan could ever say is either like play the prospects or give me more draft picks, right? Because it just seems like the smart, safe, prudent move. Then a lot of people still want the Chicago Bears to trade back, which is still a possibility, I guess, if all 3 wide receivers are gone and Joe Alt is gone in the world, and maybe they think they can get the defensive player a couple of picks later. I get all that. But if you have an opportunity, and all the people out there that are getting really excited about Caleb Williams being your quarterback, if you have the opportunity to pair a Marvin Harrison with a Caleb Williams for at least the next 5 years, and you don't have to go out and overpay, probably a 29, 30-year-old wide receiver on the open market for $25 million a year, or, trade a 4th-round pick for a 32-year-old like Keenan Allen. I'm happy he's on the team, but that was because we it was a necessity. You know, we don't have the infrastructure to make it happen. You move up, you do it, and honestly, I Bleav you don't think twice about it. And you could create that tandem. You made a great example, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. At the time, everyone was like, "How could they not take Penei Sewell? How could they not?" And I get it. The Bengals have had some of their offensive line issues, but they don't make that Super Bowl without Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and they're not contenders in the AFC, a tough AFC, for the next 4 or 5 years without that combo. I mean, it should be written in the stars, and I think that goes into a little bit of some of the rumors that I've heard that Marvin Harrison is dreaming about playing for the Chicago Bears. Whether he will wake up and that will be his reality is a different story. But I'm sure his camp is doing everything they can to possibly figure out a way to have him in the blue and orange come September.
I would rather swing big as well. Swing for the fences. You're not going to hit a home run unless you swing for the fences. And maybe the argument would be we can get 90% of what Marvin Harrison Jr. would bring to the table if Neighbors or Dunze is still at that point. Where are you at in the draft at that point? And it kind of depends on what Arizona would do at number 4. Joe Alt, I'm sure, is going to be a fine prospect. I saw him play this past fall for Notre Dame in Raleigh when the Irish played NC State. Completes his assignment virtually every time, and I'd imagine that whoever he blocks for the next decade will go pretty much untouched. Great technique. I've seen more physical offensive tackles in film I've watched before, but again, he's going to complete his assignment almost every single time and will help neutralize whichever edge rusher that you want to put across from him. That's what he brings to the table. But yeah, that comparison, I know Burrow's struggled with injury, so that would be the flip side of that of, well, have the Bengals done enough to protect him early in his career? And he's had 2 season-ending injuries since he took over as the starter in Cincinnati. But you're not getting to the Super Bowl. You're not going deep in the playoffs, and you're not considered a contender year in and year out without that combination, without having someone to throw the ball to. Bears fans know this all too well because up until this last season, everyone's like, oh, is Justin the guy? Is he not the guy? It's not even just the coaching. You can't throw the ball to yourself as a quarterback. Newsflash to all the listeners out there. So if the Bears can do this and bring in a Marvin Harrison, I would do it. It's a high risk move, but it's the type of move that good franchises do when they're aggressive, right? So like let's also look back at a year ago, right? Everyone wants to point to CJ Stroud and his success with the Houston Texans. They also traded up to number 3 to get Will Anderson out of Alabama, who was the defensive rookie of the year at number 3. So it wasn't just CJ Stroud at 2.
And it worked.
It was being aggressive at number 3.
Yeah.
And it worked. Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. And I know that we want to clutch our draft capital like our children here in Chicago, but also keep in mind that let's just say in this hypothetical world, the Chicago Bears moved up to 9 to whatever the number is, and they put in that Carolina second round pick. At the end of the day, till the end of time, the rest of history, the Chicago Bears will have traded, that first pick in last year's draft and received DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the opportunity to take Keenan Allen with the 4th round pick that they got from the Eagles because they moved back in the Jalen Carter. So I mean, look, on paper, I'm not gonna cry too many tears if we get rid of that second round pick with Carolina. And I understand that people want more swings and more bites of the apple. I totally get it. But we've already seen with Ryan Poles, he's not halfway in. He's almost all the way in, trading Montez Sweat for a second round pick, Keenan Allen for a 4th round pick. It is a little bit of a why not stop here? Why stop there this season alone and use this capital to get as many high end players as you possibly can, because you will have the wealth of your draft picks coming back to you again next year.
By the minute, that trade looks more and more lopsided in that deal with the Carolina Panthers. And if you want to take this a step further, look at the dollar amount that Panthers free agent players have gotten from other teams.
Oh God!
Go look at that figure, and it's pretty minuscule.
Yeah, I mean
it is.
And now they're
this free agency, the free agent
Panthers
players from how other teams value them. That's how you have to look at this, right? How do other teams value you when you're on the open market? Go look at that figure, and it's very small, Joey.
Yeah. I want to hit the defensive side of the ball a little bit. It's an intriguing list. And what's so intriguing about it is I think that there are a lot of people that I think are very, very smart and do a lot of great work in scouting in the NFL, have a lot of varying opinions on these guys. I'm not going to ask you for a breakdown or a scouting report on all these dudes, but just for example, Dallas Turner, they're kind of wondering, is he a little bit of a Will Anderson light? Jared Verse, who has all these length and all these physical traits that the Chicago Bears covet and like, I see him going everywhere from number 9 to the Bears all the way to number 23. Laiatu Latu, we obviously know his injury history. We also know that maybe the size isn't exactly there. And then just a couple weeks ago, I had on the show with Corey Wooten, former director of player personnel Josh Lucas, and his favorite defensive player in the draft is defensive tackle Byron Murphy, even though a lot of people believe that probably taking him at 9 is a little rich that would necessitate a trade back. So I just feel like this is one of those strange years, Mark, where we're not going to see a defensive player taken in the top 5. Even a cornerback, a pass rusher, there's so much value placed on that in the NFL. So do you think that could be, if we every single year we see in the NFL draft someone fall out of the top 10 that has been in every single mock draft known to man leading up to that night, and then they're not in there? Do you think it's probably one of these defensive guys, or do you think it possibly could be like a Roman Dunze, for example?
I think it could be Odunze, because I think that this is such a talented receiver class. You could make the arguments for one of the other players. A.D. Mitchell out of Texas can fly. I know a lot was made of his teammate Xavier Worthy out of Texas breaking the 40-yard dash record. Brian Thomas out of LSU is really talented. Tez Walker ran a good 40 as well out of UNC. the kid from Florida. Is it Jimmy? Is it Pearsall? The Florida
Ricky
receiver
Pearsall.
did
Ricky Pearsall.
Ricky Pearsall. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. He really helped himself at the draft. Lad McConkey out of Georgia as well. So this is a talented receiver class where it's like, I liken it to like, if you're going car shopping and you're like, I want to get a Beamer, or I want to get a Maserati, or, I want to get a dually truck. Pick your flavor, like of what style of receiver you like. So for that reason, I could see one of the receivers sliding out. Interesting point you make about the defensive players, but that goes back to the positional value. Dallas Turner, I'd probably like that, or the kid out of Penn State, Chop Johnson. I like Jared Verse out of Florida State
Robinson.
as well.
Yeah.
Chop,
Common name. Common last name.
The kid from UCLA with the neck issues. Whenever I see something like that, I remember a few years ago, Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech had injury issues coming in. You could be just talented in the world, but if the best ability is availability. If you can't stay on the field, I tend to say, hey, there's a reason why there's a red flag there with injury issues. I
Yeah, and
don't
real quick,
like to
just for
overlook that at
context,
all.
with context with Latu, UCLA player had a fantastic season last year. For those of you that are listening that might not know, he actually was advised he had to stop playing football. The doctors would not let him play football 2 years ago because of a neck issue.
Yeah.
He's back on the field. He's playing right now. But as we all know, when we're trying to look at the long-term ramifications of a player, that is a red flag. That is a red flag. So just for draft night, so people know.
I wish them all the best in the league too.
Totally.
But it's like when you're at the line of scrimmage in that constant collision, play after play after play after play. That's why you bring that up. Turner's good, but I mean, he played at like 225. He said he played at 225 in the championship game. So it's like, can he play at that same level when he's going to need to carry more weight to be able to go up against offensive tackles? And I get that there's different styles of edge rusher. I get all of that, but then at 9, it's like, it's kind of a reach, right?
Well, kind of a reach, and I understand people being attracted to the potential of adding perhaps the best defensive player on the board for the Chicago Bears at 9. But Mark, at some point, it will probably come this summer, and I think I'll probably do it all through next year. You hired Matt Eberflus as a defensive-minded head coach to get the best out of his players. You didn't hire Matt Eberflus so you could give him every single thing that he wants under the sun and spend all of your money on the defense. The whole idea is for him to extract maybe a unit that could have a couple potential weaknesses or holes and try and create those and turn those into strengths. I mean, over the last couple of years, they've spent draft capital on Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Zach Pickens, Jervon Dexter. That's 5 guys right there. They're paying Tremaine Edmonds over $17 million a year. They're now paying Montez Sweat over $23 million a year, and they just signed Jalen Johnson. So I understand people's leaning that they would want a defensive player in the draft, but I mean, come on, man. For a defensive head coach like Matt Eberflus with no offense, the career record that he has, haven't we given him enough? Does he really need more? And is it not time to perhaps maybe set up the offense for a little bit more long-term success than maybe give Matt Eberflus another shiny toy to play with on defense?
In Pittsburgh, we call these Tomlinisms, and for your listeners, Joey, we'll put this into context in terms of speaking Eberflus's language. You're talking about Spidey. You're talking about Dino Dex. Who else am I missing here?
Yeah, D-Rex. D-Rex. What's up, D-Rex?
I love that he has nicknames for all of his players.
For everybody. Yeah. Sweat and Sour. Where you at, baby? You ready to go? Let's go.
JC, but in all seriousness, like,
tell me, Marky Mark and the Bergie Bunch. Come on, baby, give it to me.
But yeah, after a certain point, you have to actually coach. So I think we're on the same page there, where it's like, if offense is better positional value at 9, unless you're making a trade, it's a different conversation. You mentioned Byron Murphy out of Texas. You talk about a big boy up front.
Josh Lucas loves him. loves him. I mean, this
Yeah.
is, and we could talk all we
The
want
line of
about
scrimmage game, I get
Mitch,
it,
but
but
yeah,
at not at 9, no, I'm
too much,
good.
right?
I'm good.
Yeah, it would be, and that's the other part that I kind of find a bit confusing, to be honest with you, is a lot of these Bears fans want the Bears to trade back, and I get it. It's a great idea. My other question is, what shoe is going on the other foot here? Who has this crazy incentive to move up for 9? Who is the player? What does the deal look like? And how does that roll out? And again, I think a lot of that will have to do with what happens to JJ McCarthy, because you got the Broncos sitting there at 11, or excuse me,
Mm.
you got the Vikings sitting there at 11. You got the Broncos sitting there right after them, so it could get a little chaotic for sure. But again, he's JJ McCarthy is strangely one of these weird pivot points in the draft of whether he gets in that top 10 or not.
What will happen and what should happen, Joey, is someone who covers the Bears. How do you think this will play out? But then ideally, if Brian Poles said, hey, here's the keys to the Cadillac, what should we do here? It's probably two different
So
answers, but
yeah,
let's do
so
one at a time.
we'll do one at a time. Now to be very fair, they surprised us a little bit last year going Darnell Wright. There was a couple of other offensive tackles on the board, and then their evaluations made him the best player available. So I would say prepare yourselves, Bears fans, for if Joe Alt is on the board,
Mhm.
if the offensive tackle Fuaga is on the board. I would prepare yourself to possibly take that, and I would be okay with that because offensive line for a young quarterback. How do you say no there? How do you continue to build that infrastructure and that depth? There's a part of me that is worried that they're going to take Jared Verse. I'll be honest with you. That's why I'm kind of saying, like, I'm trying to make these arguments of why I don't think it should happen. If you gave
And
me
I
the car,
like
if you
Jared
gave me the
Verse,
car
but not
keys,
at number 9, Joey. I like Jared Verse, but not at number 9.
okay, sure. I mean, and look, they did that last year. They moved back a pick and got a fourth round pick that turned into a Keenan Allen trade. So even if it's minor, even if it's something small, I think Ryan Poles, whatever trade that he makes, I think he does it with intention. And I can support and I can be on that. Again, if you give me the keys to the castle in this one, I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of watching and I'm seeing what happens with the Arizona Cardinals. And if Marvin Harrison is still on the board
Yes.
after pick 4, I'm calling the Los Angeles Chargers and I'm saying, "Hey, what do you want?" And here's the thing. I think the Chargers want to listen to that because I think the Chargers want to take an offensive lineman. I think that they would rather, and then now they're playing the game of, oh, well, we're getting some capital back, and we're probably getting the guy that we've wanted all along. With Tennessee, I see them going defense. With Atlanta, I see them going defense too as well. They can maybe go offensive line, but I don't see them going skill position. And I'm kind of seeing. I want to see how this all plays out right now. I love Malik Neighbors. I would be super happy with Roma Dunze. But if you have a shot with this extra capital that you've acquired through your own hard work, it's not even your own. It's Carolina's pick that we now have in our possession. I move up to 5, and I see. What do you want from Marvin? What do you want? Tell me.
So Jim Harbaugh retrospectively helps the Bears, even though he didn't end up becoming their head coach. I've seen Joe Alt tied to the Chargers, and I know Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern's battled some injuries as well. When he was drafted to say, this is the player who's going to protect Justin Herbert's blind side for the next decade. And it hasn't worked quite all that well. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier, Joey. The best ability is availability. And you say, well, he played in all 17 games, played with what they're saying a double ankle sprain this past year. So what is he? 70% of what he's capable of doing? I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe 60. I don't know what percentage it is. He didn't stay healthy throughout the duration of the season. And that's why I've seen the Chargers tied to offensive tackle in this draft, and it's a draft where offensive tackle is very deep.
They've gotten rid of all their wide receivers. They signed a bunch of running backs. They got Greg Roman as their offensive coordinator. I mean, it doesn't take a whiz to see what they want to do with the football when they have it in their possession next season. I think it's run the football and have Justin Herbert make these plays on play action and go that route. This is our final one. We got to get out of here. We just got a couple minutes left. Look, it's April. It's 2 weeks before the NFL draft. But it's always fun to talk a little over-unders here right now. Mark, as it stands right now, the Chicago Bears, they haven't even drafted Caleb Williams yet, which means that they think Brett Rippon and Tyson Bagent are onto something. Or maybe this is a done deal. You be the judge. But the Chicago Bears right now in Vegas are 8.5 wins next season. They won 7 last year. I think they came in, I think that was over actually. I think they walked in 6.5 to walk into the year. They got 7. They're at 8.5 right now, Mark. So what say you as it stands today with what you know with just the NFC North? I get it, things are going to change, but what you know with the NFC in general, are the Chicago Bears a plus 500 team next year as it stands today?
I'm going to take the over. I'm going to make your audience happy. And
Let's do it.
it's just let me argue against my point really quickly. Green Bay was the youngest team in the league last year, and they were a playoff team. Looked really good with Jordan Love at the end of the season. I think they'll continue to get better. Detroit, just on the edge of making the Super Bowl, like just on the edge. But when you win the division, you then have to play the toughest schedule against the other opponents that you're going to play that year, the other teams that were the number one in their division. So
And the
when
Bears
that
get the
all
last
equals
place
out,
schedule. We get the last place schedule. So
there you go, my friend. And you're coming into a situation where even if Caleb Williams isn't a superstar right away, a lot of talent where just go and get the football out quickly. DeAndre Swift, go make the money of why you're bringing him in the first place. He'll split carries with Herbert as well, to where it's just like that's a nice tandem to have to make things easy for your young signal caller. So to me, yeah, I like the over. And there's optimism. You want playoff success and you want to work right away like it did with the Texans and CJ Stroud. This year doesn't really matter if you're the Bears, if I'm being honest with you. It really doesn't, because the upside of drafting Caleb Williams and getting rid of Justin Fields is if he's top 20 this year on a rookie deal, cool, because that's about what Justin Fields was. If he's then a top 10 guy by year 2 on a rookie deal, now we're cooking with gas, Joey Christopoulos. That to me is the roadmap for the Chicago Bears of, can you be better than you were a year ago with the personnel that you have? And on paper, I like what Ryan Poles and this front office is doing. You bring Caleb Williams in, and can you finally get the quarterback position right for the first time in the history of the franchise since Sid Luckman?
very well said. I do think that there is going to be, obviously, with the number one quarterback, number one pick, Caleb Williams, everything that you just said about the Chicago Bears history, there's going to be plenty of pressure on the young man. But I don't think it's going to nothing's going to compare to 2025, because that is the year for the Chicago Bears, where I think we start really getting those lofty expectations. We'll see how this year goes, right? But if you start planning it out, start looking at the contracts, saying, well, you still got Montez Sweat in his prime, all these other things are lining up. We're 2025. That's the year where stuff gets real. Mark, I'll tell you this, because we're talking about it. My dream, and I don't even care what the outcome is, my dream is that I turn on the television in January and it's about 25 minutes before kickoff, and I just see my quarterback, Caleb Williams, with headphones on like me, breath. You could just see like dragon's breath coming out of him, and he's just warming up before we play some playoff game. You know what I mean? I just want that image. If we win or lose, I'm with you. Rookie year, you take it for a grain of salt, and you mark progress, and you try and see where you can improve as a team. But give me that one image of, you know what I mean? Give me that. Give me that.
Let me take this a step further.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 60, February the 8th, 2026, Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California. I'll see you there, my friend.
Mark it down. Mark it down. We should do one of those things. Everyone listening on the radio right now, or whether you're watching on YouTube, let's do one of those things where, like, if we get to 100, I'm gonna say right now, if we get to 150,000 subscribers on Sports Talk Chicago, by then I will buy a random person a ticket to that Super Bowl to see the Bears in Santa Clara.
Hey, we got to manifest it, Joey, and start playing the Twilight Zone music as well. I'll come out with a cigarette a la Rod Serling, and do a monologue. But I'm telling you this right now, that to me would be the ideal scenario of year 2, year 3 of Caleb Williams when he's a top 10, dare I say a top 5 quarterback. That's the upside in saying he's going to be the guy, and that's why you get rid of Justin Fields. Because with Justin Fields, you had one more year of it, the 5th year option. You've seen what you've seen in 3 years. I still think he's capable of being an NFL starter somewhere. There just wasn't a great fit for him in this offseason. We've talked about that ad nauseum on other shows, Joey. But with Caleb Williams coming in, the upside there, the situation he's coming into, there aren't going to be the excuses year 2, year 3, because you have what you need around him to ensure as best you can that he has success at an NFL level. That's what you're trying to build towards. It's got to be very exciting for Bears fans because they've seen it throughout the history, and it's like you could go through Justin Fields and Trubisky and Rex Grossman and Eric Kramer and Jim McMahon and Cade McNown. And I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on and on.
He's going to list them all, folks. Here it comes.
Shout out to
Chad
Henry
Hutchinson,
Burris.
Henry Burris, Mike Glenn. We got to get you out of here, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sports Talk Chicago. He is the senior multi-platform producer for WRAL NBC in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's also the host of Bleav in Steelers with Ike Taylor. Look, I know this is a Bears-centric town, probably listening. You're saying to yourself, I'm a Bears fan. What do I got to do with the Steelers? Well, guess what? The Bears and the Steelers, we do deals all the time together. So what better to get the inside scoop than over at Bleav in Steelers with Mark Bergin. Mark, throw out your socials, man. Say goodbye. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining Sports Talk Chicago.
The kids watch on YouTube. If you search Mark Bergin there, Mark Bergin _ on social media. Joey, thank you for having me. And I'm glad that at least someone, when the 412 area code that's Pittsburgh, answers the phone in the Chicagoland area. Because if I was in the Bears front office, if I see that 412 area code, I'm not even answering the phone anymore when it comes to trade deals.
Someone right now, Justin Fields and Chase Claypool, are just throwing and catching passes from each other and asking what the hell happened. Mark, thank you so much for jumping on the show.